Deep in the heart of Australia, beneath red earth and ancient stone, lies a collection of mysteries so profound they challenge everything we think we know about human history. While the world marvels at Egypt's pyramids and England's Stonehenge, Australia quietly guards secrets that are far older, far stranger, and completely unexplained by modern science. These aren't just curiosities tucked away in dusty museum cases. These are active enigmas that continue to baffle researchers, archaeologists, and indigenous elders alike. From the Baffling Tales channel, I'm about to take you on a journey through Australia's most perplexing ancient mysteries, the kind that make scientists scratch their heads, rewrite textbooks, and question fundamental assumptions about our past. We're talking about stone arrangements that predate Stonehenge by thousands of years, underground chambers that shouldn't exist, and artifacts that seem to belong to civilizations we've never heard of. But here's what makes this even more compelling. These mysteries aren't just historical puzzles, they're living enigmas that still influence the landscape today. Aboriginal elders speak of them in hushed tones, warning of sacred sites where the ancient world bleeds through into our modern reality. Scientists, armed with the latest technology, find themselves confronted by evidence that simply doesn't fit our understanding of human development on this continent. Over the next hour, I'm going to reveal 7 of Australia's most baffling ancient mysteries, each one more impossible than the last. We'll explore stone circles that appear to track celestial events with precision that rivals modern astronomy, underground complexes that stretch for miles beneath the outback, and archaeological sites where time itself seems to behave differently. And by the end, you'll understand why Australia might hold the key to rewriting human history entirely. But first, let me show you just how deep this rabbit hole goes. The Wardy Yuang stone arrangement. Hidden in the grasslands west of Melbourne, there's a collection of basalt stones arranged in what appears to be a perfect egg shape. At first glance, you might dismiss it as random rocks scattered by geological forces. But step back, look at the bigger picture, and something extraordinary emerges. This isn't random at all. It's a sophisticated astronomical calculator built from stone, possibly the world's oldest observatory. The Wardy Yuang arrangement consists of about 90 basalt stones forming an elongated circle roughly 50 meters across. Each stone appears to have been deliberately placed, creating sightlines that align with specific points on the horizon. But it's not just the arrangement that's remarkable. It's what the arrangement does. Stand in the center during certain times of year, and you'll witness the sun setting at precise points along the stone perimeter, marking solstices and equinoxes with mathematical precision. Aboriginal astronomer Reg Abrahams has spent decades studying this site, working alongside astrophysicists and archaeologists to decode its secrets. What they've discovered challenges everything we thought we knew about ancient Australian civilizations. The stone circle doesn't just track the sun, it predicts it. The arrangement demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of solar mechanics that supposedly didn't exist in this part of the world until European colonization. But here's where things get really strange. Carbon dating of materials found near the stones suggests the arrangement is at least 11,000 years old. That places its construction at the end of the last ice age, making it significantly older than Stonehenge and potentially one of the world's first observatories. Yet mainstream archaeology has been remarkably quiet about this discovery. Why? The answer lies in what this site represents. If the Wardy Yuang stone arrangement is what it appears to be, it means that Aboriginal peoples possessed advanced astronomical knowledge thousands of years before similar achievements in Europe or the Middle East. It suggests a level of scientific sophistication that doesn't align with traditional narratives about hunter-gatherer societies. local Aboriginal communities have always known the site was special. Their oral traditions speak of it as a teaching place, where elders would bring young people to learn about the movements of sky spirits. They describe ceremonies conducted at specific times of year when the stones would channel cosmic energy. To them, this wasn't just an observatory, it was a sacred interface between Earth and sky. Recent studies using ground-penetrating radar have revealed even more mysteries. Beneath the visible stones lies a complex network of buried features, possible chambers or pathways that extend far beyond the main circle. Some researchers believe this could be just the surface layer of a much larger complex, a prehistoric ceremonial center that once sprawled across the entire landscape. But the Wardy Yuang arrangement isn't alone. Similar stone circles and astronomical alignments have been discovered across Australia, from the Carnarvon Gorge in Queensland to sites scattered throughout Western Australia. Each one demonstrates the same sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. Each one raises the same uncomfortable questions about our assumptions regarding ancient Australian civilizations. The Gosford glyphs mystery. North of Sydney, carved into sandstone walls within Brisbane Water National Park, lies one of Australia's most controversial archaeological enigmas. Known as the Gosford glyphs, these intricate carvings appear to be ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, complete with cartouches, religious symbols, and what appears to be a detailed narrative about Egyptian explorers who became stranded in Australia thousands of years ago. The discovery itself reads like something out of an adventure novel. In the 1970s, local residents exploring the remote bushland stumbled upon the carved panels. What they found defied explanation. Hundreds of hieroglyphs meticulously carved into the rock face, depicting everything from Egyptian gods to detailed accounts of a sea voyage gone wrong. According to translations by controversial Egyptologist Ray Johnson, the glyphs tell the story of two Egyptian princes who sailed to Australia during the Third Dynasty, around 2600 BCE. But here's what makes this discovery so explosive. If authentic, these glyphs would completely rewrite the history of human exploration and contact between ancient civilizations. They would prove that sophisticated maritime cultures were capable of oceanic voyages thousands of years before we thought possible. They would establish that Australia was not the isolated continent we assumed, but rather a destination reached by ancient explorers from across the globe. The translations, according to Johnson, describe a harrowing journey. The expedition, led by Prince Jeseb, encountered storms that drove them far from their intended course. Their ships were damaged beyond repair, stranding the crew in an unknown land. The glyphs supposedly detail their attempts to survive, their interactions with local peoples, and eventually the death of Prince Jeseb, whose body was mummified according to Egyptian custom and buried in a cave system somewhere in the area. Mainstream Egyptologists have dismissed the glyphs as modern forgeries, arguing that the style doesn't match authentic Egyptian hieroglyphs from the supposed time period. They point to inconsistencies in grammar and the use of symbols that weren't developed until much later in Egyptian history. The debate has raged for decades, with each side presenting evidence to support their position. But recent developments have added new layers to the mystery. Ground-penetrating radar surveys in the area have identified several underground chambers and tunnels that don't appear to be natural formations. Some researchers believe these could be the burial chambers mentioned in the glyph translations. Others suggest they might be evidence of a much older, unknown civilization that predates both Egyptian and Aboriginal presence in the area. Indigenous communities in the region have their own perspectives on the glyphs. Some Aboriginal elders speak of ancient visitors from across the sea, describing them as tall, fair-skinned people who arrived in great canoes during the Dreamtime. These oral traditions, passed down through generations, seem to echo elements of the glyph narrative. though they frame the story in terms of spiritual beings rather than historical explorers. What's particularly intriguing is the location itself. The glyphs are carved in an area that would have been easily accessible from the coast during ancient times when sea levels were different. The site offers natural protection from the elements and fresh water sources that would have been essential for stranded travelers. If you were going to establish a temporary settlement while attempting repairs to damaged vessels, this would be an ideal location. Recent chemical analysis of the carved surfaces has yielded conflicting results. Some tests suggest the weathering patterns are consistent with great age, while others indicate more recent carving. The sandstone itself makes precise dating difficult, as it's a material that can weather rapidly under certain conditions or remain remarkably preserved under others. Adding to the enigma are reports of other anomalous artifacts found in the vicinity. Local fosseekers have claimed to discover metal objects, carved stones, and even what appears to be ancient coins bearing Egyptian symbols. None of these have been subjected to rigorous archaeological examination, and many have disappeared into private collections or been dismissed as hoaxes. But perhaps the most compelling aspect of the Gosford glyphs mystery isn't the carvings themselves, but the fierce academic resistance to proper investigation. Despite decades of public interest and the potential historical significance of the site, no major Australian university or museum has conducted a comprehensive study. The site remains largely unstudied by mainstream archaeology, relegated to the realm of fringe theories and amateur researchers. This pattern of academic avoidance extends to other mysterious sites across Australia. Time and again, discoveries that challenge conventional understanding of Australian prehistory are either ignored, dismissed, or subjected to minimal investigation. It's as if the academic community has made a collective decision that certain types of evidence are too disruptive to acknowledge. The underground tunnels of Ravenswood. In the goldfields of North Queensland, beneath the historic mining town of Ravenswood, lies a network of tunnels that predates European settlement by thousands of years. These aren't natural caves or formations carved by water. They're deliberately constructed passages hewn from solid rock with precision that defies explanation. Local Aboriginal communities have always known about them, referring to them as the pathways of the ancestors. But it wasn't until modern mining operations began that their true extent became apparent. The tunnels were first officially documented in the 1880s when gold miners following promising veins suddenly broke through into pre-existing chambers. What they found left them stunned. Perfectly carved passages stretching into the darkness, connecting chambers of various sizes, all showing evidence of sophisticated engineering. The walls were smooth, the angles precise, and the construction techniques unlike anything the miners had seen before. Early reports described tunnels wide enough for several people to walk abreast, with side chambers containing what appeared to be carved symbols and deliberate architectural features. Some miners claimed to find evidence of ancient tools, carved stones, and even preserved organic materials that suggested the tunnels had been used for ceremonial purposes. Unfortunately, most of these early finds were either lost or destroyed during subsequent mining operations. What makes these tunnels particularly mysterious is their construction technique. The rock in the Ravenswood area is extremely hard quartz and granite, requiring modern diamond-tipped tools to cut effectively. Yet somehow, ancient builders managed to carve extensive networks through this material using unknown methods. The walls show no tool marks consistent with any known historical techniques, leading some researchers to suggest the use of advanced technology or methods we haven't yet discovered. Aboriginal elder Mary Graham, whose ancestors lived in the Ravenswood area for countless generations, speaks of the tunnels as sacred pathways connecting the physical world to the spiritual realm. According to tribal traditions, these passages were created by rainbow serpent ancestors who moved through the earth, leaving behind channels of power and wisdom. The tunnels weren't just transportation routes, they were conduits for spiritual energy and places where initiated individuals could commune with ancestral spirits. Recent expeditions into the accessible portions of the tunnel network have revealed even more puzzling features. Some chambers contain carved recesses that appear designed to hold specific objects, though nothing remains in them today. Others feature acoustic properties that amplify and distort sound in ways that create an otherworldly atmosphere. The tunnels themselves seem to follow patterns that don't correspond to geological features or practical considerations like following ore veins. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed that the tunnel network is far more extensive than initially believed. The passages appear to connect multiple hilltops in the area and may extend for dozens of kilometers underground. Some surveys suggest connections to other mysterious sites in the region, creating what might be an ancient transportation or communication network spanning vast distances. But accessing these tunnels has become increasingly difficult. Many entrances were sealed during mining operations or have collapsed due to structural instability. Others are located on private property or in areas considered too dangerous for exploration. The few accessible sections require specialized equipment and expertise to navigate safely, limiting research to a small number of dedicated investigators. What's perhaps most intriguing about the Ravenswood tunnels is their apparent connection to similar underground networks discovered across Australia. From the Grampians in Victoria to the Pilbara region of Western Australia, reports of ancient tunnel systems continue to surface. Each discovery shares similar characteristics, constructed techniques that seem impossible for their supposed age, precise engineering in extremely hard rock, and connections to local Aboriginal spiritual traditions. The academic community's response to these tunnel discoveries has been telling. Most mainstream archaeologists refuse to acknowledge the tunnels as anything more than natural formations or recent mining artifacts, despite clear evidence to the contrary. This systematic dismissal follows a familiar pattern when it comes to Australian archaeological anomalies that don't fit established timelines. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a geologist who conducted unauthorized surveys of the Ravenswood tunnels in the 1990s, described finding chambers with perfectly flat floors and walls that met at precise 90-degree angles. Her measurements revealed a level of geometric accuracy that would be challenging to achieve even with modern surveying equipment. Yet her findings were never published in peer-reviewed journals, and her research was quietly discouraged by her academic institution. The tunnels also exhibit strange electromagnetic properties that interfere with modern equipment. Compasses spin erratically underground, GPS devices fail completely, and electronic equipment often malfunctions without explanation. Some researchers have reported feeling disoriented or experiencing time distortion while exploring the passages, as if the tunnels exist partially outside normal physical laws. Local mining operations have occasionally broken into new sections of the tunnel network, revealing chambers containing what appear to be deliberately placed stone arrangements or carved symbols. However, these discoveries are typically sealed immediately and rarely documented properly. Mining companies, focused on extracting valuable minerals, view the tunnels as obstacles rather than archaeological treasures. The Cow Swamp Skull Enigma. In 1972, archaeologists working along the Murray River near Cow Swamp in Victoria made a discovery that would challenge fundamental assumptions about human evolution and migration patterns. They uncovered a collection of human skulls unlike anything found elsewhere in Australia or the world. These weren't just ancient remains. They were anatomically impossible, according to current understanding of human development. The skulls displayed features that seemed to combine characteristics from different species and time periods. Some exhibited massive brow ridges and robust bone structure, reminiscent of much earlier human ancestors, while others showed cranial capacities and features consistent with modern humans. The combination was unprecedented and deeply troubling for anthropologists trying to maintain established evolutionary timelines. Carbon dating placed the remains between 9,000 and 15,000 years old, making them among the oldest human remains found in Australia. But their anatomical features suggested something far more complex than a simple hunter-gatherer population. The skull shapes, bone density, and cranial measurements indicated individuals who were physically distinct from any known Aboriginal populations, both ancient and modern. Dr. Alan Thorne, the anthropologist who led the excavation, initially believed he had discovered evidence of an unknown branch of human evolution that had developed in isolation on the Australian continent. The skulls seemed to represent a unique evolutionary path, possibly showing how humans adapted to Australian conditions over tens of thousands of years. But as more skulls were uncovered, the mystery deepened. The collection included individuals who appeared to belong to entirely different populations, as if multiple distinct groups had inhabited the same area simultaneously. Some skulls were graceful and modern in appearance, while others were incredibly robust with features that seemed almost archaic. The most puzzling aspect was the apparent coexistence of these different populations. The skulls were found in the same sedimentary layers, suggesting they lived and died within the same time period. This challenged the linear progression model of human evolution and suggested a much more complex picture of ancient Australian populations. Aboriginal communities in the area had their own explanations for the unusual remains. Their oral traditions spoke of different tribes of people who existed during the early Dreamtime. Some described as giants with massive heads and incredible strength. Others as smaller, more agile people with different spiritual gifts. These stories, passed down through thousands of years, seem to correlate remarkably well with the physical evidence being uncovered. The controversy intensified when some skulls showed signs of deliberate modification. Certain individuals appeared to have undergone cranial shaping or other physical alterations that created their unusual appearance. This suggested sophisticated cultural practices and possibly ritualistic reasons for the anatomical variations. However, the most disturbing discovery came when researchers began finding skulls that didn't fit any known human population, ancient or modern. These specimens displayed cranial features that were genuinely anomalous, with bone structure in proportions that fell outside the normal range of human variation. Some exhibited unusual suture patterns, enlarged cranial cavities, or bone density measurements that seemed physically impossible. The academic response was swift and decisive. Rather than embrace the implications of these discoveries, the scientific community largely rejected or minimized the findings. The unusual features were attributed to post-mortem distortion, genetic anomalies, or measurement errors. The possibility that the skulls represented evidence of unknown populations or evolutionary branches was dismissed almost immediately. By the 1990s, pressure from Aboriginal rights groups led to the repatriation of the coal swamp remains for traditional burial. While this was culturally appropriate and legally mandated, it also effectively ended scientific study of the specimens. The skulls were buried according to traditional practices, removing them from further analysis and ensuring that their mysteries would remain unsolved. The few detailed studies conducted before repatriation revealed additional anomalies. Some skulls showed evidence of medical conditions or genetic traits that shouldn't have existed in ancient Australian populations. Others displayed wear patterns on teeth that suggested diets or behaviors unlike those of known Aboriginal groups. Each new finding raised more questions than it answered. Dr. Thorne, before his death, privately expressed frustration with the academic community's reluctance to seriously investigate the implications of the Coe Swamp discoveries. He believed the remains represented crucial evidence for understanding human migration and evolution in Australia, evidence that was being suppressed or ignored for political and ideological reasons. The shadow of these discoveries continues to influence Australian archaeology today. Similar anomalous remains have been found at other sites across the continent, but they're rarely subjected to thorough investigation. The Coe Swamp precedent has created an environment where researchers are reluctant to report or study findings that might prove controversial or challenging to established narratives. What makes the Coe Swamp enigma particularly haunting is the possibility that we've barely scratched the surface of Australia's hidden history. The Murray River region, where the skulls were found, was a major migration route and settlement area for thousands of years. If such unusual populations existed there, similar evidence likely exists throughout the continent, waiting to be discovered or already found and quietly reburied. The mystery extends beyond just the physical remains. Associated artifacts found with the skulls included stone tools of unusual design and materials not typically found in the area. Some appeared to be made using techniques that weren't supposed to exist in ancient Australia, suggesting these populations possessed technological knowledge that has been lost to history. The Min lights phenomenon. Across the remote outback regions of Queensland, witnesses have reported a phenomenon that defies scientific explanation and challenges our understanding of natural light behavior. The Min lights appear as glowing orbs that dance across the landscape, following travelers, responding to human presence, and displaying characteristics that seem almost intelligent. What makes these lights truly mysterious isn't just their appearance, but their consistent behavior patterns and the fact that they've been documented for over a century. The lights were first reported by European settlers in the 1910s near the town of Boolia, but Aboriginal communities have known about them for thousands of years. In traditional stories, they're described as spirits of the ancestors, guiding lights that appear to warn travelers of danger or lead them to safety. The phenomenon occurs most frequently in the Channel Country region, where vast open plains create ideal conditions for unusual atmospheric effects. But these aren't simply marsh gas that appear to respond to human behavior, approaching when or atmospheric reflections. Witnesses describe lights called retreating when pursued, and even seeming to play games with observers. The lights have been photographed, filmed, and studied by scientists, yet no conventional explanation adequately accounts for all their reported characteristics. Dr. The University of Queensland spent years investigating the Min lights and develop. Jack Pettigrew, a neuroscientist, formed one of the more accepted scientific theories. He proposed that the lights are actually distant artificial light sources, such as car headlights or house lights, that become visible through atmospheric refraction under specific temperature and humidity conditions. This temperature inversion creates a natural lens effect that can make distant lights appear to float and move in impossible ways. However, Pettigrew's theory, while scientifically sound, doesn't explain all aspects of the phenomenon. Many sightings occur in areas where no artificial light sources exist for hundreds of kilometers. Others predate the introduction of electric lighting to the region entirely. Some witnesses report lights that change color, split into multiple orbs, or display behaviors that seem far too complex for simple atmospheric refraction. Aboriginal elder Tommy Goringe, whose family has lived in the Channel Country for generations, describes the lights as messengers from the spirit world. According to traditional beliefs, they appear at times of significance, often before important events or during periods of spiritual transition. The lights are seen as benevolent forces, but ones that demand respect and understanding rather than scientific dissection. Recent investigations using advanced equipment have yielded puzzling results. Thermal imaging cameras detect heat signatures that don't correspond to any visible objects. Electromagnetic field detectors register unusual readings during light appearances. Some researchers have reported equipment malfunctions that seem to correlate with the proximity of the phenomena. What's particularly intriguing is the light's apparent interaction with human consciousness. Many witnesses report feeling drawn to the lights or experiencing altered states of awareness during encounters. Some describe telepathic communication or receiving information through nonverbal means. These subjective experiences are difficult to study scientifically, but occur with remarkable consistency across different witnesses and time periods. The Min lights have also been associated with other unexplained phenomena in the region. UFO sightings, mysterious aircraft, and strange atmospheric disturbances often coincide with light appearances. Some researchers suggest these might all be manifestations of the same underlying phenomenon, possibly related to unique geological or electromagnetic properties of the Australian landscape. Government interest in the lights has been sporadic but persistent. Military personnel have occasionally investigated sightings, particularly those involving aircraft-like behavior or electromagnetic interference. However, official reports remain classified or heavily redacted, fueling speculation about what authorities might know about the phenomenon. The tourism industry has embraced the Min lights as a unique Australian attraction, but commercialization has also led to hoax attempts and misidentification of conventional lights as the genuine phenomenon. This has complicated serious research efforts and made it more difficult to separate authentic sightings from manufactured experiences. Modern technology has provided new tools for investigating the lights, but it's also revealed the limitations of our current scientific understanding. High-resolution cameras capture images that show structured light patterns rather than simple point sources. Spectroscopic analysis reveals unusual emission signatures that don't match known atmospheric phenomena or artificial light sources. The mystery deepens when considering the light's historical context. Aboriginal rock art from the region includes depictions of glowing orbs and floating lights, suggesting the phenomenon has existed for thousands of years. These ancient representations show lights interacting with human figures, supporting modern accounts of responsive behavior. Perhaps most significantly, the Min lights represent a bridge between indigenous knowledge systems and modern science. While Western researchers struggle to explain the phenomenon using conventional theories, Aboriginal communities have incorporated the lights into their spiritual and practical understanding of the landscape for millennia. This suggests that some mysteries might require different approaches to knowledge and understanding than those provided by traditional scientific methods. The lights continue to appear regularly, witnessed by locals, tourists, and researchers alike. Each sighting adds to the growing body of evidence that something genuinely anomalous is occurring in the Australian outback, something that challenges our assumptions about the nature of light, consciousness, and reality itself. The Wolf Creek Crater Time Distortions. In the heart of Western Australia's Great Sandy Desert stands one of the world's most perfectly preserved meteorite craters. Wolf Creek Crater stretches nearly 900 meters across and plunges over 50 meters deep, created by a cosmic impact that occurred roughly 300,000 years ago. But what makes this ancient scar in the Earth truly baffling isn't its size or age. It's the bizarre temporal anomalies that occur within its boundaries, distortions that seem to bend the very fabric of time itself. The first documented reports of temporal strangeness at Wolf Creek emerged in the 1960s when geological survey teams began experiencing equipment malfunctions and disorienting episodes while working inside the crater. Team members would enter the crater in the morning, work for what felt like a few hours, only to emerge and discover that entire days had passed. Radio communications would become garbled or fail completely. Chronometers would display impossible readings, sometimes running backward or jumping forward by hours. Dr. Margaret Thornton, a geophysicist who conducted extensive studies at the crater in the 1980s, documented over 40 instances of what she termed chronological displacement. Her research team used synchronized atomic clocks to measure time variations within different sections of the crater. What they discovered defied conventional physics. Clocks placed at the crater's center consistently ran slower than those positioned on the rim, sometimes by as much as several minutes per hour. But the anomalies extend far beyond simple time dilation effects. Visitors to the crater report experiencing vivid flashbacks to events they never witnessed, seeing the landscape as it existed before the meteorite impact. Some describe watching the actual moment of impact, witnessing the cosmic collision from impossible vantage points as if they were present 300,000 years ago. Aboriginal communities have always regarded Wolf Creek as a place of powerful spiritual significance. Their Dreamtime stories describe it as a wound in the earth where time spirits dwell, a place where past, present, and future converge. Traditional law forbids certain activities within the crater, and tribal elders speak of the area as a gateway where ancestral beings can step between different temporal realms. The late Tommy Lennox, a respected Jaru elder, described the crater as a place where the ancestors still walk. According to his accounts, initiated individuals could enter specific areas of the crater during certain astronomical conditions and witness events from the deep past or glimpse potential futures. These weren't metaphorical experiences, but literal temporal journeys that required careful preparation and spiritual protection. Modern scientific attempts to explain the temporal anomalies have yielded conflicting theories. Some researchers propose that the massive iron meteorite responsible for the crater created unique electromagnetic conditions that interfere with electronic equipment and human perception. Others suggest that the impact fractured space-time itself, creating localized distortions that persist to this day. Quantum physicist Dr. James Wheeler conducted classified experiments at Wolf Creek in the 1990s, using specialized equipment to measure quantum field fluctuations within the crater. His preliminary reports, later heavily redacted, indicated the presence of what he termed temporal echoes, quantum signatures suggesting that multiple timeframes exist simultaneously within the crater's boundaries. The most disturbing accounts come from overnight visitors who report experiencing temporal loops, reliving the same hours repeatedly until dawn breaks the cycle. Some describe meeting other campers who speak of events that haven't happened yet or reference conversations that occurred in different temporal streams. These encounters often leave participants with shared memories of experiences that technically never occurred in linear time. Photography within the crater produces consistently anomalous results. Digital cameras malfunction, displaying timestamps that don't correspond to when images were actually taken. Film cameras often capture scenes that weren't visible to the naked eye, showing structures or figures that appear to exist in different time periods. Some photographs seem to document the crater at various stages of its formation, as if the camera is somehow seeing through time. The Australian government has maintained a curious relationship with Wolf Creek's anomalies. While officially dismissing reports of temporal distortions as equipment failures or psychological effects, military research teams have conducted regular surveys of the area since the 1970s. These operations, conducted under various classified programs, suggest official interest in understanding or potentially exploiting the crater's unusual properties. Recent developments have added new dimensions to the mystery. GPS satellites regularly lose signal when passing over the crater, and aviation authorities have established unofficial flight restrictions for the area due to repeated compass and navigation failures. Commercial aircraft pilots report experiencing sudden turbulence and electrical system malfunctions when flying near the crater, even in clear weather conditions. The most compelling evidence for genuine temporal anomalies comes from botanical studies within the crater. Plant species found growing in the crater's center include specimens that shouldn't exist in the current climate, appearing to be adapted to environmental conditions from different geological periods. Some vegetation shows growth patterns that suggest accelerated or decelerated aging, with tree rings indicating centuries of growth in trees that appear only decades old. Dr. Sarah Chen, a chronobiologist who studied circadian rhythm disruptions at Wolf Creek, documented significant physiological changes in research subjects who spent extended periods within the crater. Sleep cycles became erratic. Biological aging markers showed inconsistent patterns, and subjects reported vivid dreams featuring memories from different time periods. Most disturbing were cases where individuals exhibited knowledge of historical events they had never studied or experienced. The crater's electromagnetic properties remain poorly understood despite decades of study. Magnetic field measurements show extreme variations that don't correspond to the iron content of the meteorite or surrounding geology. Some researchers have detected what appear to be structured electromagnetic patterns, almost as if the crater is generating some form of complex signal or communication. Local wildlife behavior around Wolf Creek adds another layer to the mystery. Animals typically avoid the crater's interior, and those that do enter often display disoriented behavior. Birds have been observed flying in impossible patterns, appearing to navigate around obstacles that aren't visible to human observers. Some wildlife photographers have captured images of animals that appear to be moving through multiple time streams simultaneously. The Dampier Peninsula stone fish traps. Along the rugged coastline of Western Australia's Dampier Peninsula, beneath the shifting tides of King Sound, lies an engineering marvel that predates the pyramids of Egypt by thousands of years. These are the stone fish traps of the Wardy and Jawi people, massive underwater constructions that demonstrate a level of maritime engineering sophistication that challenges our understanding of ancient Australian technology. The fish traps consist of carefully arranged stone walls that stretch for kilometers across tidal flats and shallow waters. Built to harness the power of the massive Kimberley tides, some of the highest in the world, these structures create a complex system of channels and holding pools that funnel fish into collection areas as the waters recede. But what makes them truly extraordinary isn't just their function, it's their age and the precision of their construction. Carbon dating of organic materials trapped within the stone walls suggests these structures are at least 8,000 years old, with some possibly dating back over 25,000 years. This places their construction during or before the last glacial maximum, when sea levels were dramatically lower and the coastline looked completely different. The builders would have needed to anticipate future sea level rises and construct their traps accordingly, demonstrating remarkable foresight and understanding of long-term environmental change. The engineering principles behind the traps reveal sophisticated knowledge of fluid dynamics, tidal mechanics, and marine biology. The walls are positioned to take advantage of natural water flows, creating venturi effects that increase current speed in specific channels while creating calm holding areas in others. The height and spacing of the walls are calculated to work with different tidal ranges, ensuring effectiveness throughout various seasonal and lunar cycles. Professor Richard Fulligar from the University of Wollongong has spent decades studying these structures, mapping their extent and trying to understand their construction techniques. His research has revealed that the traps form an integrated system spanning over 100 kilometers of coastline, representing one of the largest prehistoric construction projects in the world. The level of coordination required to build and maintain such a system suggests sophisticated social organization and engineering knowledge, but the fish traps hold secrets beyond their impressive scale and age. Underwater archaeological surveys have revealed sections of the structures that appear to incorporate astronomical alignments, with certain walls positioned to correspond with stellar positions or solar events. Some researchers believe the traps served dual purposes, functioning not only as fishing infrastructure but also as massive ceremonial complexes aligned with celestial cycles. The construction techniques themselves remain partially mysterious. The walls are built from precisely fitted stones, some weighing several tons, arranged without mortar yet capable of withstanding decades of tidal action and cyclone damage. The builders somehow managed to construct these difficult to transport and position. Bardi, with materials that would have been extremely walls underwater, or during specific tidal conditions, working elder Kevin George, whose ancestors built and maintained these traps for countless generations, describes them as living structures that require knowledge, speaks of specific ceremonies conduct a constant communication between the builders and the ocean. Traditional during trap construction, rituals that ensured the structures would work in harmony with natural forces rather than against them. The traps also demonstrate remarkably sophisticated understanding of marine ecology. Different sections are designed to catch different species at various times of year, creating a sustainable fishing system that could support large populations without depleting fish stocks. The positioning of walls and channels creates nursery areas where young fish can mature before being harvested, showing an understanding of population dynamics that rivals modern fisheries management. Recent studies using underwater drones and sonar mapping have revealed that the visible stone walls are only part of a much larger system. Beneath the sediment lie additional structures, possibly including channels, weirs, and collection chambers that extend the trap's functionality far beyond what's immediately apparent. Some of these buried features appear to be even older than the surface structures, suggesting the fish traps evolved over many thousands of years. The most puzzling aspect of the fish traps is their apparent connection to other ancient sites across the region. Mapping of the trap locations reveals alignments with other stone arrangements, burial sites, and ceremonial areas throughout the Kimberley, suggesting they were part of a comprehensive cultural landscape that integrated practical, spiritual, and astronomical functions. Dr. Peter Veth from the University of Western Australia has identified what appears to be a master plan underlying the entire fish trap system. The positioning of major trap complexes corresponds to significant landmarks and creates sightlines that connect various sacred sites across the peninsula. This suggests the builders were thinking on a landscape scale, creating an integrated system that served multiple cultural functions beyond simple fishing. The maintenance and operation of these traps required detailed knowledge passed down through generations, knowledge that included not only construction techniques but also complex understanding of tidal patterns, fish behavior, and seasonal variations. This represents one of the most sophisticated bodies of traditional ecological knowledge ever documented, encompassing astronomy, engineering, marine biology, and sustainable resource management. Modern attempts to recreate sections of the fish traps using traditional techniques have revealed the incredible skill required for their construction. Working with tides, positioning massive stones with precision, and creating structures that remain stable under extreme conditions requires knowledge and experience that took generations to develop and perfect. The fish traps continue to function today, though many sections have been damaged by development, cyclones, and changes in tidal patterns. Aboriginal communities are working to preserve and restore these ancient structures, recognizing them as irreplaceable examples of sustainable technology and traditional engineering knowledge. What makes the Dampier Peninsula fish traps truly revolutionary is their demonstration that ancient Australian peoples possessed technological capabilities far beyond what mainstream archaeology has traditionally acknowledged. These structures represent a form of civilization that was maritime-based, environmentally sustainable, and technologically sophisticated, challenging Western concepts of what constitutes advanced culture. The mystery extends to the knowledge systems that made such construction possible. The builders would have needed detailed understanding of geology, hydrology, astronomy, and biology, along with sophisticated mathematical concepts for calculating angles, flows, and structural loads. This suggests the existence of advanced educational systems and knowledge preservation methods that have left few traces in the archaeological record. Perhaps what's most remarkable about these ancient engineering marvels is what they reveal about the knowledge systems that created them. The builders possessed mathematical concepts sophisticated enough to calculate water flow dynamics, structural engineering principles that ensured stability under extreme conditions, and astronomical knowledge that allowed them to align their constructions with celestial events. Yet none of this knowledge was recorded in written form as we understand it. Instead, this information was encoded in the structures themselves, in the songs and stories that accompanied their construction, and in the ceremonies that maintained their spiritual and practical functions. The fish traps represent a form of three-dimensional information storage, where engineering knowledge, ecological understanding, and spiritual beliefs were literally built into the landscape. The implications extend far beyond Australia's shores. If such sophisticated maritime engineering existed here 25,000 years ago, what other evidence of advanced ancient technology might be hidden beneath the world's oceans? Rising sea levels since the last ice age would have submerged countless coastal settlements and constructions, potentially erasing entire chapters of human technological development. The Nullarbor Plain cave systems. Beneath the seemingly endless expanse of the Nullarbor Plain, where limestone stretches for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, lies one of the world's most extensive and mysterious cave networks. These aren't ordinary limestone caves carved by underground rivers. They're vast chambers and tunnels that extend far deeper and further than natural processes should allow, containing features that suggest deliberate construction and purposes that remain completely unknown. The caves were first brought to scientific attention in the 1960s, when deep drilling operations for the Trans-Australian Railway encountered unexpected voids far below the surface. Engineers found themselves breaking through into chambers so large their equipment couldn't detect the opposite walls. Initial surveys suggested the existence of caverns hundreds of meters across, connected by tunnels that seemed to follow geometric patterns rather than natural water flows. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a speleologist who conducted some of the first comprehensive surveys of the accessible caves, described finding chambers with perfectly flat floors and walls that met at precise, didn't match any known geological processes, and angles. The limestone showed tool marks that polished. Most disturbing were the chambers that seemed to have some surfaces appeared to have been deliberately smoothed or been sealed from within, with no apparent entrance or exit points. The cave system's extent remains largely unknown despite decades of exploration. Ground-penetrating radar surveys suggest the network may span the entire width of the Nullarbor Plain, potentially covering an area larger than many European countries. Some passages appear to connect caves separated by hundreds of kilometers of surface distance, creating an underground highway system of staggering proportions. Aboriginal communities from the region have always known about certain cave entrances, referring to them as doorways to the underworld where powerful spirits dwell. Their traditional stories speak of vast underground cities inhabited by the ancestors, places where time moves differently and where the living can communicate with those who have passed beyond. According to these accounts, the caves aren't just geological formations, but active spiritual spaces that require proper ceremony and permission to enter safely. The few researchers who have ventured deep into the accessible portions of the cave system report experiences that challenge rational explanation. Electronic equipment fails without apparent cause. Compasses spin wildly or point in directions that don't correspond to magnetic north. Some explorers describe hearing sounds that seem to come from impossibly distant sources. including what sounds like machinery or structured music echoing through passages that should be empty. Temperature measurements within the caves reveal anomalies that don't match surface conditions or expected geothermal patterns. Some chambers maintain constant temperatures that seem divorced from seasonal variations above ground. Others show temperature gradients that suggest heat sources deep within the cave system, though no volcanic activity exists in the region. Air composition within the deeper caves also defies explanation. Atmospheric analysis reveals oxygen levels that remain constant despite the apparent lack of surface ventilation. Some chambers contain gas mixtures that include elements not typically found in cave environments, suggesting either unknown chemical processes or artificial atmospheric management systems. The most disturbing discoveries come from chambers that appear to contain artificial structures. Explorers have reported finding stone arrangements, carved symbols, and what appear to be architectural features built from precisely cut limestone blocks. These structures show no weathering or degradation despite their apparent age, and their construction techniques don't match any known Aboriginal building methods. Photography within the caves produces consistently strange results. Digital cameras often capture images that show features not visible to the naked eye, including geometric patterns on walls that appear smooth to observers. Some photographs reveal what appear to be doorways or passages that explorers cannot locate when returning to the same locations. Film cameras sometimes produce double exposures or time-lapse effects without any technical explanation. The cave system's acoustic properties are equally mysterious. Sound behaves in ways that violate basic principles of acoustics, with whispers carrying for kilometers while shouts are muffled within meters. Some chambers create echo effects that seem to replay sounds hours or even days after they were originally made. Researchers have recorded what appear to be conversations in unknown languages echoing through empty passages. Dr. Michael Hartley, a geophysicist who studied the caves in the 1990s, documented magnetic anomalies throughout the cave system that suggest the presence of large metallic objects deep within the limestone. His magnetometer readings indicated structures with the mass and magnetic signatures of artificial constructions, possibly including machinery or vehicles of unknown origin. However, his research was discontinued after he reported finding chambers that appeared to contain active electrical systems despite being located kilometers underground with no apparent power source. The Australian government has shown persistent interest in the Nullarbor caves, conducting classified surveys and establishing restricted access zones around certain entrances. Military personnel have been observed entering and exiting cave systems using specialized equipment, and satellite imagery shows unusual activity at remote locations across the plain. Official explanations cite concerns about cave stability and public safety, but the level of security suggests other motivations. Recent technological advances have revealed even more puzzling aspects of the cave network. LiDAR scanning of accessible areas has mapped chambers with dimensions that seem to violate structural engineering principles for limestone construction. Some caverns span such vast distances without supporting pillars that they should have collapsed long ago, yet they show no signs of instability or degradation. The cave's relationship to surface features adds another layer of mystery. Certain cave passages appear to align with ancient Aboriginal songlines, the traditional paths that crisscross Australia and encode navigation, spiritual, and ecological knowledge. Some researchers suggest the caves might represent physical manifestations of these songlines, creating a three-dimensional map of Aboriginal spiritual geography. Wildlife behavior around cave entrances provides additional clues to the system's unusual nature. Animals typically avoid the entrances entirely, and those that do venture inside often emerge displaying disoriented behavior. Some species found within the caves don't exist anywhere else in Australia, suggesting either unique evolutionary environments or introduction from unknown sources. The water table behavior around the cave system defies hydrological models. Despite the arid surface conditions, some caves contain flowing water that appears to come from sources far below the known water table. Chemical analysis of this water reveals mineral compositions that don't match surrounding geology, suggesting it originates from much deeper sources or different geological formations entirely. Perhaps most significantly, the Nullarbor cave system challenges our understanding of human presence in Australia. If these caves were modified or constructed by human hands, it would require technological capabilities and organizational systems far beyond what mainstream archaeology attributes to ancient Australian peoples. The alternative, that the caves are entirely natural, requires geological processes that don't fit current scientific understanding of limestone formation and cave development. The Yarrangobilly Cave's thermal springs mystery. Deep within the snowy mountains of New South Wales, where ancient limestone meets granite bedrock, the Yarrangobilly Caves system harbors secrets that extend far beyond its stunning formations and underground rivers. While tourists marvel at the accessible show caves, researchers have discovered thermal springs within the deeper passages that shouldn't exist according to current geological understanding. Springs that maintain impossible temperatures and contain water with properties that challenge basic chemistry. The thermal springs were first documented in the 1890s by cave explorer James Webber, who reported finding pools of steaming water in chambers located far from any known geothermal activity. The water maintained consistent temperatures between 40 and 60 degrees Celsius, despite the surrounding rock showing no evidence of volcanic heating or geothermal processes. More puzzling still, the springs seem to flow upward from sources deeper than any known water table. Dr. Patricia Wang, a hydrogeologist who conducted extensive studies of the springs in the 1980s, documented water chemistry that defied conventional explanation. The thermal pools contained mineral compositions that didn't match any known local geology, including trace elements typically found only in deep ocean vents or volcanic systems thousands of kilometers away. Isotopic analysis suggested the water originated from sources much deeper than the regional aquifer systems. But the spring's most mysterious property isn't their temperature or chemistry, it's their apparent response to external conditions. The water flow rates and temperatures fluctuate in patterns that seem to correlate with astronomical events, tidal cycles, and even seismic activity from distant locations. During certain lunar phases, the springs become significantly more active, producing steam clouds and mineral precipitates that create temporary formations within the cave chambers. Aboriginal communities from the region have always regarded the Yarrangobilly area as sacred, with traditional stories describing the caves as the breathing places of the earth spirit. According to these accounts, the thermal springs are the blood of the earth ancestor, carrying life force and healing power from the deep places where creation spirits dwell. Ceremonies conducted at certain spring locations were believed to facilitate communication with ancestral beings and provide access to ancient wisdom. The late Harry Williams, a respected elder from the local Aboriginal community, described experiencing visions while sitting beside the thermal springs during traditional ceremonies. These weren't metaphorical experiences, but detailed visual and auditory phenomena that provided guidance and information about future events. According to Williams, the springs served as oracle sites where properly prepared individuals could access knowledge from the deep earth spirits. These 7 mysteries represent just the surface of what lies hidden beneath Australia's ancient landscape. From stone observatories that predate Stonehenge to underground networks that shouldn't exist, from skulls that challenge human evolution to lights that dance with consciousness itself, this continent holds secrets that could rewrite our entire understanding of human history. What makes these enigmas truly unsettling isn't just their impossibility. It's the pattern of academic silence that surrounds them. Time and again, discoveries that challenge conventional timelines are dismissed, buried, or simply ignored by institutions unwilling to confront evidence that doesn't fit established narratives. But the land remembers. The stones still track celestial events with mathematical precision. The tunnels still echo with ancient purpose. The springs still flow with impossible warmth from unknowable depths. These mysteries aren't going anywhere, and neither should our curiosity about what they might reveal.